Good morning, everybody. You're saying, what's John doing up there? Well, it's kind of like how it was during lockdown, during COVID, where we only had a couple people here. This time there's a different reason. Like I said, we give out extra God points when you show up during a snowstorm. And our licensed prayer practitioner was snowed into their driveway, so here I am. And so I found a reading here, but now let's do an invocation first. So let's set the tone for why we're here, and first welcome to everyone who is snuggy in their PJs with cocoa at home. So I know that the power and presence of Spirit is right here, right where we are, that it is an absolute perfection, that we are blessed for those that are here in person, those many that are at home, those that are on the ski slopes who will join us later on today afterwards. It is all perfect. It is all blessed. And I know that everything unfolds in its right moment, right here this morning, in perfection. I give thanks for everyone here, those who have helped and volunteers, RL with our music, and everyone who is present in spirit and online. And for this I give thanks, and so it is. So, on the rare occasion that I have to step in to do this, which happens maybe once or twice a year because, like snow, I always grab our Science of Mind magazine, and they have a reading for each and every day. And let's see, who did the readings this month? Reverend Karen Wilson. And so, appropriately, as I open this up, I'm reading the reading for tomorrow because the caption or the title is A Snow-Inspired Realization. So, let's go with this. And there's two quotes that they always give from someone else before their reading. So let's read those first. The first one is from Marcus Aurelius and Antoninus. Well, stop talking about what a good person is like and just be one. And second is by Ernest Holmes from A Thing Called Life, and he says, you must become a master of your own thinking. This is the only way you will realize freedom and joy. And here is Reverend Karen's little composition. At one point in my life, I spent 20 years living in a snow belt. Snow arrived on my driveway 3 weeks earlier than it did for my neighbors 1 block down the road from me. And it left 3 weeks later. All told, that usually meant a solid 4 months of shoveling. We feel your pain. As the season progressed, the snow gradually built up on either side of the driveway until the mounds were as tall as me. One year, when the snow was particularly heavy, the mounds towered above me. I kept throwing the snow as high as I could. Defeated by nature, both internal and external, I created another band of snow, knowing that eventually all that would be left would be a narrow trench for me to drive through. I felt trapped. Isn't this just like our minds? The trench was a reflection of the tunnel vision I was creating. I started wondering why my neighbors, equipped with snowblowers and muscles bigger than my own, chose not to help. Still, new to Science of Mind, I challenged myself to think instead of what I could do. Change the weather? No. Change my neighbors? No. Change my thinking? Yes. What if I became the neighbor I wanted? Now I had an incentive to finish my task quickly so I could go over and help someone else once I was done. And so I did. With my heart lighter, the heavy snow miraculously transformed into something my arms lifted with vigor. Then I waved at my neighbor as I trudged forward with my shovel, with spring in my step. Oh, that was lovely. And let me get my affirmation sheet. I don't have one.
I don't think there was.
Thank you. Even though we're fewer in numbers today, we have an unusual amount of snacks afterwards. I just want to tell you that anyone that is home is like, gee, if I only went shopping yesterday and picked something up, you can actually just put a coat over your pajamas and come. I mean, we're loaded today. We are loaded. If anyone leaves without a sugar high and sugar coma, it is your own fault. With that, we have an affirmation. I think we did attach it to the live stream event, and all of you should have it here. It says affirmation for December in red. I am an individualized expression of the divine who is unique yet one with the unlimited nature of the universe. And RL.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. A thought of the day. So there was a Caritas, the community chorale. I had a concert last night, 7 p.m., community campus. I think there were 32 of us on stage and 30 in the audience. And it was just as it was supposed to be. We do a concert again this afternoon at 2 o'clock if anybody's out and about at the community campus. A nice scoop of holiday cheer. But last night I took a moment to talk about memories, traditions, things that we cling to, things that we do every year, things that have become important. And my question, my curiosity is, the first time they happened, were they important? Did we notice them the first time? Or did we just happen to do them again a second time? And having done that something special, after a few times it became not just special, but essential. And then it became what we always do. And if we don't get to do what we always do, we feel like there's a little bit of loss. And so my curiosity is what's happening this year that's going to become a tradition. There's a lot of new going on right now. And are there some new things that have popped up that will be so delightful, that will matter so much, that they'll become tradition. They'll become one of those treasured memories. So then I got home and popped on Facebook just to see how the rest of the world was doing. And my little daily memories popped up. And this came up from 2018. And I have to share this. So there was a choir concert at Wood River in 2018, last night. And I wrote this. 1,000 stories from tonight's concert. I came in the door with my heart completely full, but here's the thing that took me over the top. The B-Tones, the guys group that I've coached for a long time now, came on the stage fairly late in the concert. 3 alumni were with them. I knew about this. I'd even nudged it. But there in the middle of all these guys was Joseph. Joseph is this beautiful, joy-filled young man who sings with Spiritus, the large choir that Max directs. Special, dear, loves singing more than most of the kids put together. And yes, it seems that his needs are as special as his heart. I had noticed that he wasn't there when Spiritus sang. Guess he arrived too late, or missed the call to be on stage, or whatever. But suddenly, right in the middle of the B-Tones was Joseph. Never rehearsed with us, didn't know the songs. Did not matter. Joseph knew he was supposed to sing tonight. So when all the guys went to the back of the theater to come running down the aisle, Joseph went too. And run he did, and he found the perfect place right at center stage. And he sang, and he danced, and joy oozed out of his pores. No one expected this angel to show up, but there he was. In a concert where the students sang from deep down inside, no one was happier on the stage tonight than Joseph. Except me. So here's what I know. Love creates a culture where amazing things happen. And I work with unbelievable people who are the essence of love. I am convinced that the biggest gifts of the season are waiting for us if we just look for them. They're drops of magic, bits of miracles. They might be in our pockets or waiting around the corner. And tonight it was all magical and miraculous, all about Joseph. So when Joseph shows up on stage, don't miss it. When someone drops something off unexpected at your door, don't miss it. When you remember to drop something off on someone else's door, don't miss it. Don't write it off. Might become a tradition.
Thank you, RL.
Thanks, John.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone home. I was just checking online, and we've got a pretty good full house. But you're just not here in this house. You're in your own house. So I guess it's not like we're just talking amongst ourselves, and it doesn't matter what we do because everyone's there watching us. So I guess we have to be on our good behavior. And again, but this morning, in some ways, I thought it was interesting. It has a lot to say with what we do in the season. This time as we go towards Christmas, we go towards Hanukkah, there's a sense of anticipation and getting ready in many ways of something happening. And I think that was true for me this morning. I knew something was going to happen. I didn't know where it would happen. I've always think one day I'm going to be doing a live stream out of my home with just a question and answers or something like that because snow happens. And, we've had like about 18 inches of snow here since Thursday. So it is semi-miraculous that we are here and we got plowed out. But that is the interesting thing about this time of year, regardless of how you view Christmas or how you even view Hanukkah, that there is an anticipation and preparation that we go through inwardly and even outwardly as we anticipate something going to happen, like an intention of ours. You set an intention or a goal. You want something to take place. And as we look at Christmas or having family together for Hanukkah, there's so much that goes into preparation. The event itself is over like that. And then the next few days are kind of like the post-game show. What happened? Did it go off as had we want? Did Uncle Harry act badly again this year? And now there's always, like, if you have an Uncle Harry, it's like, oh, is he coming? Did anyone tell him to tone it down this year? Or, you know what I'm talking about. So there is that getting ready. And in the Christmas story, there is the same sort of thing. There is this whole push and idea, of Advent, of getting ready. It's a birth of something new. And whether, even if you have a completely secular version of this holiday, you can use it as a template of getting ready for something, setting an intention, and of course putting on with the new year of something new happening in our lives. And then let's say it happens. But then a great deal of energy goes into, it happened, now what? I don't think we give much attention to, it happened, now what? And I wrote in my blog this week about a portion of the Christmas story that is often not given a lot of discussion. It's right at the end, and sometimes it's just almost like and then this happened, and blah, 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 blah. Let's move on to in the next chapter in the New Testament. But first of all, I don't look at the Christmas stories in the New Testament as history the way that we look at history. I believe there are historical figures and things happened in history that were included, but it's a larger-than-life story. In fact, what many people don't realize is that there are two Christmas stories in the New Testament, and they are completely different stories. That the story that you may have been raised with is kind of a cut and paste of the two. There's things that happen in one story that can't physically happen at the same time in the second story. So, and some people, in fact, I just saw someone on YouTube was just saying that claims that, bringing that up and saying that that's why this has no value. To me, it has great value, because it's not about a linear history. It's about, like, there's this larger-than-life story, and there's two of them, and they don't fit together, and depending on what lesson you want to relive through yourself, you can go to one story or the next. And so that's why I think they're important. And yes, there's some historical things that happen in there. But one of the stories involves the three magi version, and the other story, no magi, no camels, no floating star in the sky. It's in one of the stories. And so as the story goes, they're looking for this, as they astrologically or they've heard intuitively that there's someone of great importance going to be born. It might have been, he or she may have been born already, or it's about to happen. And I guess these three magi kind of were connected, so they stopped off at the king and says, have you heard about this? Has it happened yet? Do you know what's going on? And it's King Herod. And he says, no, but if you find him, let me know. Because the whole thing was that, this person is a threat. And when you look into this version of the story, they call this the slaughter of the innocents. That he says, well, we're just going to kill any young child under 2 just to be safe. So there's no chance of this rival coming up anymore. So at the end of this version of the story, and like I said, it's like a throwaway line at the end of the story, Jesus and Mary realize, well, I can't go home. And so they go to Egypt and to wait out until such time that Herod's not around and the edict is expired. And I think there's a line in there that says that once Herod had died, that they were able to go home. So this is kind of a throwaway line. So I actually don't think that's a historical fact. I don't. But the consciousness and metaphor of Egypt in this and other stories in the Bible is an interesting metaphor. And Egypt in the Bible is a place you go when you're stuck. So let's go back to Exodus in the Old Testament, the whole stories of Moses and the Hebrews being in bondage and wanting to get their freedom. And so they are stuck in slavery for who knows how many years, and like, how are we going to get out of here? And the whole story of Exodus is how they finally do it and set an intention to go elsewhere. So it's interesting to me that a story written hundreds of years later has Mary and Joseph and the newborn, go back to Egypt. I mean, as a Hebrew family, really? Didn't we just escape from there a couple hundred years ago or something? Why are we going back? But for me, it is a great metaphor of once you have achieved something in your mind that you've worked for on some level, it's like a big thing, it was a big goal, a big ask, and it happens for you, often there is a period of a metaphor of Egypt where you're like, now what? Have anyone had that happen? It's like you have something big. Maybe you went in a degree program, or you opened a business, or any number of, or you got married, or ended a marriage. And you're like, this is the big thing that's happening. And in our mind, we have all these fantasies of, well, once I do this, look how my life will open up, and all these amazing things will happen. I have ultimate freedom now because I've attained this goal. And often we go to Egypt. And note, I'm not trying to disparage the modern country of Egypt at all. It's looking at a metaphor. This is not a political statement. But in here, we metaphorically can go, in a sense, to Egypt. And this is why I think we do. That as I've talked to people over the years, and people come to me and say, John, I'm going to do this big thing. I'm entering a 3 years master's program, and I have to go to Northern California for 3 years, and then I'm coming back. Or, my gosh, I'm opening a business, and this is like a multi-million-dollar investment for me. It's going to open, in a sense. And just think of something big here, and you think, and once it opens, we're going to really take off. But as I talk to people that are doing this, and as they're getting ready to do the preparation for this big thing, and they're saying, well, how do I do this? I've got my life now, and I still don't have time in my life now, but yet I've got this big thing I'm going to do at the same time. How does that work? And one of the conversations I have with them is one, you can't do everything all at once. You have to make room for this big thing that you're going to go afterwards. But as I tell people to look at it as a time of planned imbalance, realizing I can't do it all. Planned imbalance. And if you have family or a spouse or a partner or anything like that, before you go into that imbalance, you might do a little bit of negotiations. Realize there's no way I can do all this and do this. And a couple of people have had that conversation with me years later. They say, that was a great, hint, because it was nuts to think I could do it all. I had to do some negotiations in my life. But I said, here's the second part of this. So when you are in planned imbalance, in a sense, what you were doing is borrowing energy from other parts of your life, in a sense. So let's say if you have a spouse and let's say you have children you're raising together, you might say for this period of time, you have to do everything. Maybe that's just one example. And we're in this together, in this degree program, or whatever it is worth it, but that is part of the imbalance. But once you finish that, as I tell people, at some point, the bill is going to be due. To think of that. So I've been borrowing energy or whatever over here, or telling my husband, wife, or partner that you take care of the kids for 2 years, good luck, because I'm busy, and suddenly those 2 years are over, and it's just like, 2 years are over now, aren't they? Here's the keys to the kingdom. Here's the kids' soccer schedule, or whatever you have to go back to do, that the bill is due. But there is a much bigger bill that is due as we kind of get plunged into the consciousness of Egypt. It is the inner things that we may have put to one side. That I'm too busy to deal with these emotional things, or I'm too busy to deal with these or I think I'm too busy to deal with these relationship things that need some work. I'm too busy, I'm taking the class, I'm opening the business, I'm doing whatever. And it can be quite shocking that after you get the thing that you had planned on or hoped for and dreamed of, that you're put in this time of a consciousness of Egypt where you feel stuck because, in a sense, the bill is due. And part of that bill is, how do I now integrate all this new stuff that I have, my life the way it was before, and how do I create something even as a hybrid of the whole mess? And as we are figuring that out, it can really appear like you are stuck. I found this to be true in the School of Ministry for me, not just for me, but other colleagues of mine who went through the 3-year program. It's a pretty intensive program, like any other master's program is. And I know I deluded myself into thinking that I was taking care of my personal business, relationship-wise and all-wise. And I just knew that I would graduate and it would just be like a rocket into the next portion of my life and just coming someplace like here. And as I told this story over the years, I actually had a 2-year period in Egypt, in a sense, where I had to reevaluate. I had to pay the bill of what was due, and I was left with this idea of, how did I get here? Just a little kind of aside that was so funny. So in the School of Ministry, at the end, in spring, as the semester is going to end for the year, there is a campus-wide retreat somewhere. And there's like 3 or 4 campuses throughout the United States, and they try to get everyone to go to the same one. And it's just kind of a nice relief almost. The semester is almost over, the year's almost over, a little rest is going to happen in summer. And you get to rest a little bit too. And there's one student who I didn't know well, and she claimed to be intuitive, let's just say. I don't think she was like card-carrying Swami or something. And she says, I just have to tell you this. I said, okay. She says, I have good news and bad news for you. Okay. The good news is you're really going to get what you have envisioned in your life and your ministry. And this was interesting what she said here. They're waiting for you, and I think they're in the mountains somewhere. And she was excited. And then she got this concerned look in her face. Says, but you're going to have to go through some stuff first. Basically, a 2-year period of paying the bill, readjusting my inner life, my spiritual life, the things that I had let go in my personal life that needed attention, and I had to do a lot of rebuilding. And when we're in that time, the question we will often ask ourselves, how do I get out of this? Whereas the real question we need to ask and answer is, what do I need to learn before I can move forward? So and it's so interesting when we feel stuck in some ways, like, how do I get out of this? I've done all this work, I've done all this preparation, I've attained something that I believe that I've been wanting for so long. But the consciousness and metaphor of Egypt is that there's something you need to learn before you leave. And when you're in that state and it feels so paralyzed and nothing is happening, at least you think, when actually a great deal is going on the emotional and spiritual level. And I know with me, it's so easy at that point to just fall into almost a victim consciousness, like, I can't believe I did all this, and look what happened and where I am now. And it can seem like everything is completely out of your control after seemingly, driving the bus for so long to get the goal or attain the goal or intention that you had desired to have. So what do? What I did, first of all, is the only thing that you can do is be present. I know that sounds like what does that even mean? It means that at least for me, that you no longer have these big intentions or goals that you're setting in the physical world, that your goal is to be fully aware of where you are, what has happened, and what you need to learn and know before you can move forward. And when you are starting something like a degree program, business or whatever, it is often a very left-brain, task-oriented type of thing. And what I found for me is I needed to put task-oriented things aside and be better acquainted with my intuitive nature of when it was time to take steps forward, that it wasn't something that you could plan anymore. And so as I was thinking about this week, it made me think of the weirdest things that pop in my head. This is falling over here. So if you were a child in the 1960s in Los Angeles, there were any number of kind of off-the-wall children's shows. I mean, not bad, but they were local shows that were only in the Southern California market, and they were live. And they were interesting when I look back. And the one that I watched, I don't even remember the name of the show, but the main character was this guy called Engineer Bill. Does anyone remember, if you were in Southern California, Engineer Bill? So here's what was Engineer Bill's shtick. I honestly can't remember much of what he did, quite frankly. He had an outfit on that, in his mind, was what you would look like if you worked on the railroad. And there was like train paraphernalia all over the set. And the one thing I do remember that he did is that one of the things he did every day was to try to assist parents in helping their kids drink milk. Doesn't this sound weird? So, no, and this is actually true. So what he would do is that you would say, okay, now it's time to play a red light, green light. And what you were supposed, and my mother never had me play red light, green light. It was just too weird even for her. And so what you're supposed to do is your parents give you a glass of milk, like a tall glass, and you're sitting in front of the TV set. Again, what could go wrong? So Engineer Bill would be ready, and there'd be like a traffic light thing with a green and a red light. And he'd go green light, and you're supposed to start chugging the milk. Again, those of you who are parents, this could go wrong in so many ways. But then he would red light, you could come up for air kind of thing, and kind of and then I guess he'd give you enough time to burp or whatever you needed to do. And then it would be, this is terrible, here's the mom. And wouldn't this horrify you if your kid's with a glass of milk in front of the TV? And then it would be green light again, you're supposed to chug this thing down. What can I say is that I just know there was a lot of 6-year-olds losing their milk in the kitchen, on the kitchen table or in the living room in front of the TV. But why I digress, and this shows you how weird my mind's working, that I was thinking this week of us needing to go into our intuitive nature, that the intuitive nature really is a game of green light and red light. So when you feel stuck, what I found is that I really just want to get to it. I want to go do something. I want to make a difference. I want to get out of being stuck. And at that time in my life of needing to do more being than doing, the whole point was to be still with myself and literally say, and this thing I want to do, to get out of the predicament, is it a green light or is it a red light? And what I found is that when you are quiet with yourself and honest with yourself, that even though your human ego wants to burst forward and get some action again, if you're not ready, intuitively you're going to get a red light. Like, not necessarily a no, but not yet. And it's really frustrating because I know that during those 2 years I got lots of red lights. I'm like, well, can I do this? I'd be quiet in my prayer times, like, no, not yet. And I would get green light to the weirdest things of what I needed to do in my journey during that time. So I think that it is a great, simple spiritual practice, especially for us this time of year. There's so much on our agenda. There's so many things pulling at us from different parts of our lives. And we can often think, well, I have to do it all. And you really don't. Or if you also might be in a consciousness of Egypt point of life, to go within and say, yeah, even though there's so many things I think I would want to do, is it a green light or is it a red light? A lot of times when you're in that metaphor of Egypt, there's a lot of just stillness time that you need to take. And it's a lot of time that you think nothing is happening, but a great deal is happening nonetheless. And what I found after that period, when I really got the big green light, it was big, it was instantaneous, and boom, I was out of that state of being so quickly it like gave me whiplash. So you just have the faith to stay with it, to know, as they say, Spirit shows up in time and on time and in the right form at all times if we are just present. And I just want to close today with just one line from a book I'm reading called Resurrection by Paul Selig. And he says, what frightens you becomes the wind that moves you. What challenges you becomes the muscles of your arms. What lifts you is your awareness that nothing before you is permanent. So, let's just take this in for a moment and give thanks for today. Let's give thanks for this amazing place that we live and the beautiful snow outside. Let's give thanks for this time of year, whether we are anticipating Christmas or Hanukkah or something completely different. It is all good. It is all God on all levels. So let us just put forward one affirmation this holiday season, to simply be grateful, to be present with what we're doing, and be willing to see the miracles that happen right before us. So we give thanks for this, and we let this go, and we release it in our thanksgiving, knowing that as we let something go, amazing things happen. And so it is.